Well, maybe I shouldn't have built my cabin after all in Broken Bow. What's up, everyone? My name is Casey McKeown. I'm a licensed real estate agent in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, as well as Orlando, Florida. And as you heard before, I am building a cabin and have been for the last year in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Now, if you've been following this journey, I actually sold my very first property that I bought back in 2017. It was a duplex with my VA loan. And 5 years later, I was able to sell it for almost $300,000 in profit. Now, with $300,000, that essentially allowed me to build a $1.1 million cabin. We're talking a very large cabin with a pretty massive covered backyard patio. As you guys can see, I've been building this for over a year now, but the unfortunate side is this certainly has come with some frustrations. Now, the first thing I get to discuss with you guys could be applicable really in any market. It isn't necessarily Broken Bow. It can be applied to truly any market, more or less markets that you're probably going to be building something and maybe acquiring land plus, a build job, which is exactly what I did. Now, this is the bank that I used. It's First State Bank in Oklahoma. There's honestly a ton of different banks, and this is no hate or anything negative necessarily to say about this particular bank. It's more or less something that I didn't do myself, and this is also why I love filming YouTube content, is to educate you guys. If you decide to go do this, or maybe you decide to build a cabin in some other state and decide to go the construction loan route, make sure you read your loan documents. Now, it's been about a year since I opened this up. This is all of my closing documents that you'll typically be given. Even if you just buy a regular home, you'll get some kind of folder with all of the documents in it. What most of us are probably concerned about is this document, which is the settlement statement. It's going to tell you what you purchased the property for, and it's going to break down all of the closing costs. You go all the way down, you're looking about $1,082,114. That was the total cost when I purchased this property roughly on, May 5th, 2022. But this is just the closing statement. This is not regarding your loan and all the details regarding the loan that you're taking out. Now, that is going to be mostly found on this single document, which is a promissory note. Now, I did, and I say this lightly, I did take a look at this. Big and bold, it shows $762,000 is my principal amount. If you take the $1,082,000 and subtract the 300 and some change, that gets the loan value or the total principal value of $762,000. Then I was taking a look, initial rate. I just am so used to seeing a residential contract and, a 30-year fixed note, 5%. Sounds good. I didn't really read all of the fine print, which is where I'm getting at for you guys. You have to read the fine print. Now, I'm certainly not going to read this entire page here for you guys, but I'm going to read what I wish I would have read, last year, because now, coming up on this 12-month interest-only payment, that is now turning into a principal and interest payment, and then also adjusting, because if you look further down, it's a variable interest rate. So that 5% that I got last year is going to vary based on Wall Street Journal today. Now, one paragraph that I am going to read is the payment paragraph. It states that the borrower will so on and so forth. So to break this down for you, because a lot of this is just confusing, and to be honest with you, the lender probably could have done a little bit better job as far as giving me a forewarning, hey, interest rates are likely to climb over the next year, and also there's a strong chance that this interest rate doesn't just adjust to Wall Street Prime, but it has also an adjustable rate beyond that. So my initial interest rate of 5%, I can tell you, starting July 5th, my interest rate goes from 5% to 9.75%. So what does that mean? Yes, my interest rate in one single year has doubled. Well, I'll give you a monetary value. Now, my rough mortgage payment is going to be about $5,084 and some change is what I was quoted at based at that 5% when I first bought the property. Well, if you adjust to 9.75%, we're looking at about $1,800 more a month in interest. And that's not the total amount of interest, guys. That's just the additional amount of interest that I'm incurring by the rate going from 5% to almost 10%. I'm already currently paying a 12-month interest plan right now just on the money that I've loaned out, which at this point it's been capped because I've paid my builder and my cabin's just about done. But my total monthly interest payment is going to be north of $4,000 a month. My mortgage payment itself may run me about $7,000 or $7,500. So we're talking about $3,000 and some change going to principal payment. and $4,000 a month going to interest. Needless to say, I had to look for alternative options. I've gone from my 20-year commercial note to applying to now what is a 30-year fixed note. It's going to be probably around 8%. My mortgage may be slightly higher, but I'm elongating the mortgage by 10 years. And on top of that, it's going to be a fixed rate that down the road, if I want to refinance, I can. But if, rates continue to just outright suck, I'm at least going to have a rate that's locked that's not going to continue to adjust over time. But enough about paying out of my for interest rate, guys. Let's talk about the next situation that has happened by building a cabin up in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Make sure that you do your due diligence when it comes to contractors and your builder themselves. Now, there's a lot of people up in Broken Bow that aren't from Broken Bow or Hochatown. They're actually people maybe from the Dallas-Fort Worth area that see a huge opportunity to come rent something and stay in the area and start building cabins. Even though they may not have a ton of experience building cabins, they just have experience building more residential homes. A lot of these cabins that are being built up in Broken Bow are by no means cheap. Mine's 1.1 million, probably worth 1.3 at this point. And mine's 32 to 3,400 square feet. There's one on my particular street that's 4,700 square feet and 7 bedrooms. Yes, that's almost a $2 million cabin. So there's a lot of money being poured into Broken Bow, not just from a cabin perspective, but you've got a new casino going there. You've got a lot of business coming in, and it's just a great place to go and kind of vacation. So of course, there's going to be a lot of contractors and builders that probably shouldn't be building in Broken Bow that wind up finding business there. Now, the next comments I'm going to be making are not directed to my particular builder. I will say, first and foremost, make sure that you read, just like you should when it comes to your loan, make sure you also read your builder's contract as well as your lot contract if you're also purchasing a lot. I can tell you there was a little bit of a misunderstanding when it came to what I was dealing with when it came to building my cabin. Fortunately enough, my situation, I had planned for about a year. We're going to be looking probably at about a year and 2 weeks. Timeline-wise is really nothing to complain about, but I can tell you other people, they've actually contracted an even larger cabin with an expected completion date of about a year, and they're sitting at 2 years without their cabin being built. Now, to give you guys a quick idea of what that may cost, in my situation, again, as I mentioned before, my mortgage payment is going to be north of $7,000. And if we're an entire additional year here, $7,000, you're looking at maybe $84,000 in mortgage payments without any kind of rental income coming in, and your cabin's still not done. Needless to say, there will be a lot of frustration if that's the situation you're sitting in. I would make sure also that you're keeping up with your builder, especially if you're not local to Broken Bow or Hochatown. I'm about 3 or 4 hours away in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I can't particularly, go to my lot and go to my cabin every single day and see what they're doing. So if I can't do that, I'm going to be texting or asking for updates, wanting to see pictures, videos, or maybe even pay someone locally who can actually go to your cabin on a regular basis and update you. But when it comes to the actual contract that you're looking to sign, make sure that they have everything laid out crystal clear for you and you're aware of what they're actually having the total build job cost cover. For instance, if it's my situation with an $875,000 build job, I know that it's going to cost this for, foundation, this much for bricks, this much for, appliances, so on and so forth. And also make sure that they are telling you what they are giving you. What kind of appliances are they giving you? How much price per square feet are they giving you for tile and for floor? All of this stuff needs to be considered because at the end of the day, if you wind up spending less, that's more money that they're keeping in their pocket. And vice versa, if you're spending more, the last thing you want to have done is when you're done with your cabin, getting a pretty massive bill for all the overages in terms of upgrades you chose to do. So it may sound stupid, but yes, make sure you read your loan documents. Make sure you also read your builder contracts and make sure you do your due diligence both on the lender as well as on the builder to make sure that what you're getting yourself into is not going to be a financial burden for you down the road. And now the very last thing that I want to discuss with you guys here, because if you're finding this video, you may just be a subscriber to my YouTube channel, or you may be finding this video with the intent to, yes, do exactly what I've done and build a cabin in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. And what might that be? Well, it's saturation, guys. After many, many years of building cabins up in Broken Bow, I I can tell you the last 3 to 5 years, it's been absolutely crazy. And yes, when I first started looking into Broken Bow, I knew that there were going to be a ton of cabins. And technically, I haven't even had it rented out for one day. So this may be a follow-up video in the future that I'm going to give you guys an update on as far as how my cabin is renting. But yes, there are a ton of cabins in Broken Bow. So you have to stand out. Now, one thing when it comes to standing out is not everyone has $1.1 or $1.2 million to spend on a cabin. Most cabins, I guess you could say, would start at maybe $500,000 or $600,000 in Broken Bow, and they range all the way north to, $2-3 million. So I'm at a price point that is going to be competitive with other cabins, but I'm also in a location up on Carter Mountain, so it's actually got a tremendous view. And on top of that, I've got a few aspects of my cabin that I'm looking to do, build it a little bit more modern. I've got a pretty cool setup the way my cabin is built. I've got a nice loft for additional room for people to sleep. At the end of the day, my cabin's going to sleep about 18 or 20 people, which is definitely on the large side for Broken Bow. But if you're looking to maybe buy a 1-bedroom cabin up in Broken Bow, you're going to have a lot of competition and a lot of other cabins that you're going to have to set yours apart from in order to consistently stay rented. But what I can tell you is if you're a newer cabin and if it's maybe a more modern cabin and it shows, you're going to rent pretty well. And I can tell you just based off of taking a look at other cabins that are similar to mine, my cabin's going to rent anywhere from probably $499 to about $1,000 a night, maybe more on, long weekends such as Memorial Day or Labor Day, so on and so forth. But I'm looking at maybe a 50% occupancy rate, and I'm going to be making a tremendous amount of money above the mortgage that I was mentioning earlier. But that's also adding a $10,000 hot tub. That's also adding a $30,000 pool spa. That's also adding $25,000 to my cabin build by adding an additional loft space, an additional bathroom, upgrading the countertops from granite to quartz, so on and so forth, just to make the place nicer in hopes that it'll rent out to more people. So yes, make sure you stand out, because if you're buying a cabin that's 15 years old, first of all, there's probably a reason they're selling it. But second of all, they're losing a lot of traction to a lot of the newer cabins that are being built. Now, this is not me necessarily saying don't go buy an older cabin in Broken Bow, but at the end of the day, you've got a ton of competition and only more by the day as more cabins continue to get finished out. So make sure that your cabin is special in some sense so it can rent out as much as possible. So should I have used my duplex's $300,000 in profit to build in Broken Bow last year? It's going to be tough to say until this cabin actually starts renting out. What I can tell you is I've paid 12 months of interest only. I've watched the build job, some good parts to it, some bad parts to it. Not going to really know until it finally starts to rent out. But based on some quick numbers, I'm certainly going to be making some money on this cabin and also be able to use it as my first investment really to enjoy myself. Now, stay tuned for future videos about my Broken Bow cabin. We're going to be heading up there next week to get a full tour of it being completed, hopefully, knock on wood. But stay tuned, guys. There's going to be a lot more Broken Bow content to come.